spiritual realities and also certain spiritual conditions of the soul. Now, they are real physical miracles, but they're also illustrations. Many parables meant to teach us things and picture for us things in the spiritual realm, and that is certainly the case here, as with all of our Lord's miracles, and that's the angle from which I want us to consider this morning, including our consideration of this woman's condition. You know, it's interesting in these accounts that we have in the Gospels of these healings and so forth, that we're often given some very striking details about the conditions of those Jesus healed. There are certain unique elements that stick out, certain unusual elements that sometimes are there that to some of these that picture for us in various ways the effects of sin upon the souls of men. And also sometimes picture various conditions of the soul. So let's look at this very striking description that we're given of this woman, okay? First of all, she was bent over. Bent over. Her back, her spine, was completely bent over. What a strange, crippling disability this was. Now, some medical experts have theorized regarding what was wrong with her. Some have suggested that she may have suffered from a particular form of what's called spondylitis, a kind of spiritual arthritis in which eventually the vertebral joints become fused together in a rigid mass. Or it could have been a severe case of scoliosis, perhaps. Or it very well might have been brought on by an unusually severe case of mental depression, which caused her back, as sometimes happens, to gradually curl over and continue to do so until she's bent all the way over. And then, having been in this way for a long time, her body became stiffened in that position. We're not told precisely, but certainly, whatever the nature of her condition, it was a depressing state to be in. Think about it. Just try to imagine. This had embarrassingly deformed her body, the beauty of her shape. It had marred the dignity of her humanity. It had robbed her of much of the joy of life. Perhaps she could remember when she was a little girl, or perhaps a young teenager, when she could walk erect and there was a smile and a brightness on her face and a beauty and a dignity in her form and a joy in life. She could leap and run and feel the sun on her face, and she would smile and laugh, and she could actually enjoy face-to-face, eye-to-eye interaction and fellowship with her friends. But those days are a faint memory now. Now she is completely bent over, and she could hardly look at anything but the ground. What a picture of a person with a tremendous burden weighing them down. A burden of soul, perhaps, weighing them down so they can hardly look up. No longer could she gaze at the beauty of the sky and the clouds and the stars. It was difficult to see anything. Her eyes, and no doubt probably her thoughts as well, were constantly low and downward, down in the dust, in perpetual sadness and gloom. Some people are like that. In fact, there may be someone here today, and this is a perfect description of where you are. Maybe you're not bent over physically, but you are emotionally and spiritually bent over with a burden of guilt, the burden of sin, or a burden of despair, and sadness, and gloom. Notice secondly, we're told that she could in no way raise herself. She couldn't raise herself. Now think about this. This tells us that she had at least tried to. She had tried to lift herself. It's not that she had just given into this without any effort to resist it. No, she had tried to lift herself, but try as she may, she couldn't do it. It was no use. Perhaps she had gone to doctors, but whatever they suggested or tried to do to help her, it never worked. She could not lift herself up. And perhaps by now she had given up, even trying to do so. Sometimes people, can be very cruel counselors.